Sunday dinner. Tonight, we're gonna share our take on one of the truly iconic dishes, the Russian classic, Beef Stroganoff. This is truly one of my family's favorites. My son's just played 3 soccer games in the last 2 days, and I'm looking for a truly hearty meal, something that's gonna stick to his bones, as well as give us a couple great meals for leftovers for the week, which undoubtedly we're gonna fight over. This is a great classic dish, very rich, very hearty, and as you can see, I have all these wonderful ingredients right here in front of me that's all gonna go in the preparation of this dish. As normal, if you look at the link below and the descriptions below the video, we're gonna share all of the ingredients and the measurements as well as the steps throughout this video. So with that, let's get to preparing the steaks. The first step in this recipe is to prepare your beef. For this recipe, we've chosen prime grade New York strip steaks. You can really use any cut of beef that you want. You can use ribeye, you can use chuck steak. We find using true prime grade, which we have locally available here in Texas, fantastic and adds a bit of richness to the meat. What you're gonna see here is I'm gonna cube this last steak up of the 3, then we're gonna season with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, kosher salt, ground black pepper, as well as just a touch of garlic powder. And with that, you can kind of see how I'm going to do this. I'm just going to kind of cut it. I call it about a 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick. I'm just going to come all the way down the steak. Go all the way down. I'll kind of trim these up. As you see, some of the parts are just going to kind of come off. We'll trim those up here in the back end. One thing that is important to note in doing this process is try to cut them fairly evenly in regards to the thickness, as we're going to sear these next. And we want to try to get them as consistent as we can. All right, a couple more cuts. And we definitely want to, we're not going to use this completely fatty end here. While that may be great when we're grilling steaks, we're going to kind of trim some of that off, as it's really not going to add a lot to this dish. But you can see some of the pieces I'm going to leave a little bit longer. Some of the pieces I'll leave a little bit shorter, more of a cube. But at the same point in time, you want to try to get the same thickness. I think that's the key here. All right. I'm going to talk about one other step in this process. Is also, you can cook this and stew this dish for hours and hours with this meat, or you can cook it for shorter periods of time. It's going to give the meat a little more of a steak texture versus a stew type texture. All right, with that, let's go ahead and get seasoned. Chop these last couple bits off. Again, you can see here, left a couple longer, a few shorter. Great, first thing we're gonna do, just kind of drizzle. Just a little bit of olive oil. Try to get a little bit over all of them. We're gonna come in with some kosher salt. And I use the coarse kosher salt. And don't be afraid here, meat needs salt to sear and bring out the flavor of the beef. So you see I'm gonna put pretty liberal amount on these steaks. All right, now we got those nice and coated. I'm gonna come in with just some garlic powder, not a touch, not a ton, just a dusting. Same thing. We're gonna do some fresh cracked black pepper. Try to get a little bit on all of them. All right. Okay, just kind of pat that in. All right, I'm gonna now flip these over and do the other side, and then we're gonna get to searing the steaks, and it's important to get a nice sear on them as the next step. So join us back here in just 1 second. These New York strips look truly incredible. They're really well marbled. It's gonna add a lot of richness to this dish. So for searing these steaks, it's gonna be important. We're gonna do this in batches. What's important here is to not overcook them. We're gonna try to get a nice brown color on all sides, and then we're gonna reserve them. It's all gonna be cooked in one pot, but we're gonna do batch after batch. So to start with here, again, we're gonna just come in here with some tablespoon or 2 of extra virgin olive oil. As you can see, I already have this pan really hot. I got a couple big pats of butter. I'm gonna put in there, let that melt to brown our steaks in. All right. Come in here, and again, don't overcrowd the steaks is the key here. We're gonna cook this in probably 3, maybe 4 batches, depending, and try to get these really nice and seared. We're gonna do maybe 1 minute to 2 minutes maximum on each side. That's it here. One more piece here. This will probably be in about 3 batches. This is about 3.5-inch New York strips. I'm just going to let them sit and sear. And the important thing is we don't need to move these around. We want to let them get a nice little brown on the side. And we'll join you again right when we're going to want to turn these. And I'm going to show you what we're looking for when we sear them. So our steaks have now been on for 1 minute here. They've got a nice little sear going. I want to show everyone here where we want to be when we want to turn these. Again, we don't want to overcook these as we're going to continue to stew in our sauce. We want to get just a nice light sear on the meat. Now we're going to quickly turn these and cook them for about 1 more minute on that other side. And then we're going to let these rest and add them back to the dish here at the very end. All right. Join you here in just a few minutes when all these batches are done. Quickly. All right, we've just taken off the last batch of meat here. We're gonna add a couple pats of butter here. We're gonna go ahead and go all the way in with our 2 yellow onions. I'm gonna go ahead and put these in as that butter browns. And really get these onions starting to caramelize. So now this is gonna deglaze the bottom of the pan here. All these onions are gonna soak up the juice from the meat here, and I'm going to turn this down. I've had it on high. I'm going to turn this down to about medium high. And really important, anytime we're cooking onions, you've heard me over and over, we're going to add some kosher salt to the onions. This is going to allow the onions to release the sweetness as well as help them caramelize and sweat out. Okay, we're going to cook these onions probably 3 or 4 minutes, get it to where they're just starting to become translucent before we add our next ingredient. So if you want to kind of pan over here, I'm going to go through what we're going to add here. As you saw, we used 2 yellow onions. Right here, we have about 1/4 cup of brandy. I have a couple tablespoons of kosher salt which we're going to add throughout the meal. We have sweet Hungarian paprika. We have 1 teaspoon of ground mustard. We have 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard. We have 1 whole shallot. We have around 4 sprigs of thyme. This is probably close to 2 teaspoons. We'll see how much I use. Probably about 1 to 2 teaspoons we'll probably use in the dish. We have 5 cloves of garlic. We have 2 heaping tablespoons of tomato paste. And we have 4 tablespoons of flour, which we're going to kind of use to make a roux. Here we have 16 ounces of portobello mushrooms in which we've quartered. And as you can see here, we really like quartering them. And it allows them to keep the body as you're cooking, and we think is the right texture. We have around 3 to 4 cups of beef stock as well we're gonna add here. So as we do this, I'm gonna see now your onions are starting to caramelize here, take on color, and we're gonna allow these to sweat down for about 3 to 4 minutes, and we'll rejoin you as soon as they're prepared to kind of keep cooking this dish here. All right, talk to you soon. So now our onions have been sweating down for about 3 minutes, and you can see here they're becoming translucent and starting to caramelize. The next thing we're going to do here is we're going to add our shallot and our garlic. We're going to let these also cook for about 2 to 3 more minutes. Again, I'm going to add just a touch more kosher salt. Help those kind of start sweating down. Get that well mixed. My son would appreciate this, but I wish you had smell-o-vision as this smells spectacular. All right, so I'm gonna let this cook for about 2 to 3 more minutes. When I see the shallot starting to caramelize, we're gonna add our next series of ingredients, which are spices. Stay tuned. So our garlic and shallot now have been added for about 2 to 3 more minutes. You can see now they're becoming translucent. One thing I really want you to pay attention to, I got a lot of different texture in here. I got some really caramelized onions. I got some onions with some bigger chunks. I think the difference in textures adds a lot to the dish here. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add our 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard, and that gives us a nice little twang, as well as the 1 teaspoon
of dried mustard. We're gonna come in here, we're gonna go ahead and add this entire amount, which you can see here, it's probably right at 2 teaspoons of fresh thyme, right out of our garden. We got 2 teaspoons of sweet Hungarian paprika. You could choose to use smoked paprika in here. We like the sweet paprika ourselves. I'm gonna get that seasoning. I'm gonna get it and let that kind of cook in here with the onions, shallot, garlic. And you see the richness here, the brownness from the beef, the onions, the garlic. Look truly fantastic. Sorry about that. Then we're gonna come in with our 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. So it's important not to just rush this step. It's important as we get the tomato paste, get that little bit off there, is that we're gonna let this tomato paste brown here. We're not gonna just go and start adding the next ingredients. We're gonna cook this tomato paste for probably 2, maybe 3 minutes and let it really cook down before we add our next ingredients, which are the mushrooms. All right, so I'm gonna let this cook and we'll rejoin you here in just a minute. All right, now the tomato paste is well incorporated and cooked down, we're gonna go ahead and add our 16 ounces of quartered portobello mushrooms. And just as we did with the with the onions, garlic, and shallot, you see, get them nice and coated and incorporated. We're gonna go ahead and add a little bit more kosher salt. That's also gonna help the mushrooms release their natural essence and help cook down. Okay. I want my mushrooms to have some volume in this, so I'm not gonna overcook these mushrooms and have them become really, really small, but I am gonna cook them for about 2 to 3 more minutes, and then this is when we're gonna start kind of making our roux next and adding our liquids. All right, we'll join you here in just a few minutes. So our mushrooms have been cooking for about 3 minutes. They've released some of their volume, kind of reduced here. You see everything now is just really, really well incorporated. Looks fantastic, smells even better. Now is when we're gonna start adding our flour. Right here I have 4 tablespoons, and I'm just gonna do a nice dusting over the entire top of this here. This is gonna help thicken our sauce. And again, out of the 4 tablespoons, I've probably added right around 3. I'm not gonna add any more, that's just perfect. I want a nice coating over the entire top here. Now what I wanna do here is allow this to brown. I'm gonna kind of congeal everything together, that's fine. I wanna get it nice and incorporated, okay? It's important not to rush this step. I actually wanna cook this flour down for about 2 to 3 minutes. Again, very similar to the tomato paste. A lot of people wanna rush and put their flour in and put your liquids in. Stop, take a little bit, and let this flour brown. Okay, we're gonna let this cook for about 3 to 4 minutes. Next step is gonna add our beef stock and brandy, and then we'll come right back to you. All right, now our flour has been well browned. You can see everything here is just really well congealed. We're now gonna come in here with our beef stock. And again, I'm looking, I have 4 cups here. I'm looking for consistency. I don't want this to become a soup here. You add, so I've added about almost 2 cups here. I'm just gonna keep stirring this in nice and slow. I'm gonna add a little bit more. That looks about perfect to me right there. And this again, this is gonna cook now for about 20 to 25 minutes. And the last liquid I'm gonna have here is a 1/4 cup of brandy, which I used our Houston Bourbon Society barrel pick, Phoenix barrel from Copper and Kings. Fantastic. All right, so we're now gonna let this cook for about 20 minutes. If it looks like it's already reducing too much, we can definitely add more beef stock to this mix, but now you can see this looks truly rich. We're gonna let it saute for about 20 minutes. There's one other step I wanna add here. You can add the beef here very quickly and stew it for 3 to 4 hours. What that would do differently is have the beef become really, really tender and almost falling apart. The other method which we do here is do a quick cook with the beef. We like our beef a little more steak-like instead of more stew-like, in which we only reincorporate the beef for about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes until it's well heated through and well combined here. So again, next step we're gonna do, you can see this has come up to temperature, starting to very slow boil. I'm gonna bring this down to right around medium high, and let it saute slowly for about 20 minutes. All right, our sauce has been simmering now for about 20 minutes. You can see it's slightly reduced, nice and thick, and you can just look at the layers of texture here between the onions and the mushrooms. Truly looks fantastic. So about 5 minutes ago, I took out about 1/4 to 1/2 cup of the broth that I let slightly cool. I here have 8 ounces of sour cream. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna introduce the slightly cooled broth to our sour cream. And the reason I'm doing this here is I'm gonna let this mix and incorporate into the sour cream. And you can see here, what I'm doing this is so the sour cream won't curdle going into our hot sauce mixture here. Got it nice and well mixed, just thinned out slightly. Okay, looks perfect. It's okay, you can see I got some mushrooms in there, got some onions there, that's fine. But now this is what's gonna truly add this richness and creaminess to this dish. You can see it's nice sauteing. And we're gonna go ahead and add this entire 8 ounces of sour cream. This is what gives the dish that classic creamy, little bit sour cream flavor that the dish is really known for. All right, now that that's in there, just slowly stir this in. And you're gonna see the sauce go from that dark, rich, nutty brown, and it's gonna come now to this creamy, brownish red tint that really is iconic to this dish. Looks perfect here. Okay, we're gonna let this incorporate for probably 2 to 3 minutes, and then the last step is gonna be to add the beef, let it reheat and reintroduce into the sauce, and then get ready to plate. We'll see you here in a few minutes. All right, our sauce has been cooking for about another 3 minutes, and as you can see, it's just starting to come right back up to a simmer. I've been slowly stirring it periodically. Again, we don't want this cream to curdle, so you just want to get it right to a simmer. And then we're going to reintroduce all of our beef here. And again, this was 3 full steaks. We want to get all of that juice and incorporate this all back in. This is just a great alternative. My son is always asking for steak and we're wanting to do something different. This is just a great alternative. Fantastic family meal. Stick to the bones for a growing 14-year-old son. Everyone in the family loves it. And just look at how incredible and rich this is. So again, we're gonna let this cook now for about 5 to 7 minutes. We're gonna wanna make sure the beef is well incorporated, well heated through. Like I said earlier, you could add more liquid to this process and cook this for another 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours. The beef will become really, really tender and falling apart. Our family likes this more of a steak texture. So that's why we're only gonna cook this for about another 5 to 7 minutes with the beef in. We cook the beef right to a medium rare consistency, and it's just gonna heat back up. When that's done, we'll come back and plate and be ready to serve. So our beef is now finished cooking. It cooked for about another 7 minutes. It looks fantastic. The texture's in here. The sauce, nice and creamy and thick. As you can see here, big chunks of beef, mushrooms, onions. This is really fantastic. Now you can serve this with classic flat egg noodle. You can do it with rice. My family prefers the Spätzle, which is a egg noodle, a classic German style egg noodle, which I'm gonna put just a little dab there in the middle of each one of these bowls, and then come with the sauce right on top of it, nice and rich. We're gonna wanna make sure we grab some big chunks of meat, onions, everything here well incorporated for each bowl. All right, well, I want to thank everybody again for stopping by Sunday dinner and enjoying these fantastic recipes we'd look to share with you in the future. This beef stroganoff is truly a family favorite, and really hope you get a chance to cook it yourself. Leave us your feedback, and don't forget to join or look at our Facebook page, Sunday Dinner, as well as our YouTube page, Sunday Dinner as well. Give us a like. Thanks for joining.